George Pell AC is an Australian Cardinal of the Roman Catholic Church and the inaugural and current Prefect of the Secretariat for the Economy. Since 2014, he previously served as the 8th Archbishop of Sydney, Auxiliary Bishop and Archbishop of the Archdiocese of Melbourne. He was created a Cardinal in 2003. Early life and education. Pell was born in Ballarat, Victoria, to George Arthur and Margaret Lillian Pell. His father, a non-practicing Anglican whose ancestors were from Leicestershire in England, was a heavyweight boxing champion. His mother was a devout Catholic of Irish descent. During World War II, his father served in the Australian Defence Force. His sister, Margaret, became a violinist with the Melbourne Symphony Orchestra. As a child, he underwent 24 operations to remove an abscess in his throat. Pell received his early education at Loreto Convent and at St. Patrick's College, both in his native Ballarat. One of his classmates at St. Patrick's was Paul Bonggiorno. At St. Patrick's, Pell played as a ruckman on the first 18 from 1956 to 1959. He even signed to play with the Richmond Football Club. However, his ambitions later turned to the priesthood. Speaking of his decision to become a priest, Pell once said, to put it crudely, "I feared and suspected and eventually became convinced that God wanted me to do His work, and I was never able to successfully escape that conviction." In 1960, he began his priestly studies at Corpus Christi College, then located in Werribee. One of his fellow seminarians at Corpus Christi was Dennis Hart, Pell's future successor as Archbishop of Melbourne. Pell continued to play football and served as class prefect in his second and third years. In 1963, he was assigned to continue his studies at the Pontifical Urbaniana University in Rome. He was ordained to the diaconate on 15 August 1966. Priesthood. On 16 December 1966, Pell was ordained a priest by Cardinal Grégoire Pierre Agajanian at St. Peter's Basilica. He received a Licentiate of Sacred Theology from the Urbaniana University in 1967 and continued his studies at the University of Oxford, where he earned a Ph.D. in Church History in 1971 with a thesis entitled The Exercise of Authority in Early Christianity from about 170 to about 270. During his studies at Oxford, he also served as a chaplain to Catholic students at Eton College, where he celebrated the first Roman Catholic Mass since the English Reformation. In 1971, he returned to Australia and was assigned to serve as an assistant priest in Swan Hill, where he remained for 2 years. He then served at a parish in Ballarat East from 1973 to 1983, becoming administrator of the parish of Bungaree in 1984. In 1982, he earned a Master of Education degree from Monash University in Melbourne. During his tenure in Ballarat East and Bungaree, he also served as Episcopal Vicar for Education, Director of the Aquinas campus of the Institute of Catholic Education and Principal of the Institute of Catholic Education. He was also editor of Light, the newspaper of the Diocese of Ballarat, from 1979 to 1984. From 1985 to 1987, Pell served as seminary rector of his alma mater, Corpus Christi College. Episcopacy. Pell was appointed an Auxiliary Bishop of Melbourne and titular Bishop of Scala on 30 March 1987. He received his episcopal consecration on 21 May 1987 from Archbishop Frank Little, with Bishops Ronald Mulcairns and Joseph O'Connell serving as co-consecrators. He served as bishop for the southern region of Melbourne. During this time, he was a parish priest in Mentone. Pell was named 7th Archbishop of Melbourne on 16 July 1996, receiving the pallium from Pope John Paul II on 29 June 1997. He was later appointed 8th Archbishop of Sydney on 26 March 2001 and again received the pallium from John Paul on 29 June 2001. Pell was a consultor of the Pontifical Council for Justice and Peace from 1990 to 1995 and a member from 2002. From 1990 to 2000 he was a member of the Congregation for the Doctrine of the Faith. In April 2002, John Paul II named him president of the Vox Clara Commission to advise the Congregation for Divine Worship on English translations of liturgical texts. In December 2002, he was appointed a member of the Pontifical Council for the Family, having previously served as a consultor to the Council. On the 22nd of September 2012, Pell was appointed a member of the Congregation for Bishops' Church Roll Episcopate. Since Pell's appointment as Archbishop of Melbourne, he has maintained a high public profile on a wide range of issues, while retaining a strict adherence to Catholic orthodoxy, with some dispute over the issue of Catholics and primacy of conscience. Pell worked cooperatively with his Anglican counterpart, Peter Jensen, on political issues while avoiding theological controversies. This was referred to in Sydney as the ecumenism of the right. In defending the importance of religious belief in building a just society, Pell worked with representatives of non-Christian faiths, arguing in 2001 that the most significant religious change in Australia over the past 50 years is the increase of people without religion, now about 1/5 of the population. All monotheists, Christians and Jews, Muslims and Sikhs, must labour to reverse this. We must not allow the situation to deteriorate as it had in Elijah's time, 850 years before Christ, where monotheism was nearly swamped by the aggressive paganism of the followers of Baal. On the 28th of September 2003, Pope John Paul II announced that he would nominate Pell and 28 others to the College of Cardinals. In the consistory of the 21st of October he was created and proclaimed Cardinal Priest of S. Maria Domenica Mazzarello. For the first time ever, from Paul's elevation to the cardinalate in 2003 until Edward Bede Clancy's 80th birthday on the 13th of December 2003, there were 3 Australian cardinal electors, including Clancy and Edward Idris Cassidy, President Emeritus of the Pontifical Council for Promoting Christian Unity. Pell was one of the electors who participated in the 2005 papal conclave that elected Pope Benedict XVI. It has been speculated that Pell served as a type of campaign manager behind Benedict's election, while there was a little speculation in the Australian media that he had an outside chance of becoming Pope himself. International commentary on the papal succession did not mention Pell as a contender. However, Pell was mentioned as a possible successor to Benedict XVI as head of the Congregation for the Doctrine of the Faith. This position was given to William Levada, former Archbishop of San Francisco. Pell remains eligible to participate in any future papal conclaves that begin before his 80th birthday on the 8th of June 2021. In 2006, Pell made a successful bid for Sydney to host the 2008 World Youth Day, one of the largest regular international gatherings of young people in the world, often attracting crowds of millions. The 2008 event brought Pope Benedict XVI on his first papal visit to Australia. We take it for granted that people will always give to the poor and be concerned about social justice, Pell said soon after winning the bid, in remarks which spelled out his pastoral priorities. But this doesn't just happen by itself. Many great civilizations have shown no regard for these values at all and have even considered them weaknesses. Every society requires a goodly percentage of active believers to ensure that the values of a fair go and respect for others are promoted and passed on the next generation. World Youth Day will make a powerful contribution to this vital work. On the 18th of September 2012, Pell was named by Pope Benedict XVI to be one of the papally appointed Synod Fathers for the October 2012 Ordinary General Assembly of the Synod of Bishops on the New Evangelization. He was the only cardinal from Oceania to take part in the 2013 papal conclave. Following the election of Pope Francis, Pell was one of 8 members appointed to advise the Pope on how to reform the Catholic Church. Secretariat for the Economy. In February 2014, Pell was appointed to be the first cardinal prefect of the newly created Secretariat for the Economy. In this role, Pell will become responsible for the annual budget of the Holy See and the Vatican. As a result of his appointment, the See of Sydney fell vacant. In July 2014 it was announced that Cardinal Pell, with the consent of Pope Francis, had the ordinary section of APSA transferred to the Secretariat for the Economy and claimed that this was an important step to enable the Secretariat for the Economy to exercise its responsibilities of economic control and vigilance over the agencies of the Holy See. It was also announced that remaining staff of APSA would begin to focus exclusively on its role as a treasury for the Holy See and the Vatican City, State. Following the confirmation of the Institute for the Works of Religion's mission by the Pope on 7 April 2014, the IOR announced plans for the next stage of development. The Council of Cardinals, the Secretariat for the Economy, the Supervisory Commission of Cardinals and the current IOR Board of Superintendents have agreed that this plan will be carried out by a new executive team led by Jean-Baptiste de François. Pell was appointed a member of the Congregation for the Evangelization of Peoples in September 2014. It was reported in November 2014 that the Secretariat for the Economy has distributed a new handbook to all Vatican officers outlining financial management policies that will go into effect on 1 January 2015. The manual has been endorsed by the Council for the Economy and approved by Pope Francis in Forma Specifica. The purpose of the manual is very simple, said Pell. It brings financial management practices in line with international standards and will help all entities and administrations of the Holy See and the Vatican City State prepare financial reports in a consistent and transparent manner. The Secretariat for the Economy will provide training in support to the Vatican Holy See officers to help implement the new policies. In 2015, Cardinal Cocco Palmeri questioned the scope of the authority given to the Secretariat for the Economy and Pell. These questions involved not the demand for transparency in all financial operations, but the consolidation of management under the Secretariat for the Economy. Sexual abuse by clergy. Melbourne response and towards healing protocols under Pell's leadership. The Melbourne Responder and the Towards Healing protocols were established in Australia to respond to allegations of child abuse. 3 months after being installed as Archbishop of Melbourne, Pell set up the Melbourne Response. The Melbourne Response was set up to be an independent process which offered counselling and support to victims at no cost to them, as well as ex gratia compensation to victims. Ex gratia payments were capped, but victims were publicly encouraged to come forward. Soon after, the Australian Catholic Bishops' Conference established Towards Healing Royal Commission on Sexual Abuse in late 2012. The Australian federal government announced the establishment of a Royal Commission into institutional responses to child sexual abuse. In a televised media conference, Pell welcomed the Royal Commission. However, his comments received significant media attention when he stated that priests who hear confessions from people who commit child sex abuse must remain bound by the seal of confession, commenting, "If that is done outside the confessional, the seal of confession is inviolable. If the priest knows beforehand about such a situation, the priest should refuse to hear the confession. That would be my advice, and I would never hear the confession of a priest who is suspected of such a thing." In his 2012 Christmas address, Pell stated that he was deeply sorry for the hurt that had occurred, describing it as completely contrary to Christ's teachings. On 20 May 2015 at the Royal Commission into Institutional Responses to Child Sexual Abuse, Pell, when a priest was accused by a victim of child sex abuse in Ballarat of attempting to bribe him in order to prevent the abuse being made public. Pell served as an assistant priest at St. Alipius Parish School and shared a house with Gerald Ridsdale in the 1970s. Ridsdale, a subsequently defrocked priest, was convicted between 1993 and 2013 of a large number of child sexual abuse and indecent assault charges against children aged as young as 4 years. Pell denied knowing about any of Ridsdale's actions. The journalist Paul Bongiorno, who also once shared a presbytery with Ridsdale, told the media that Ridsdale hid his actions. Pell was reportedly part of a leadership group of Catholic priests in the Diocese of Ballarat that met during 1982 and discussed moving Ridsdale from the parish to leave Mortlake and to send him to Sydney. 2013 inquiry evidence. On 27 May 2013, Pell gave evidence before Victoria's parliamentary inquiry into the handling of child abuse by religious and other organisations. He admitted his church had covered up abuse for fear of scandal, that his predecessor Archbishop Little had destroyed records, moved paedophile priests from parish to parish and facilitated appalling crimes, handling of sex abuse claims as Archbishop of Sydney during Cardinal Pell's tenure as Archbishop of Sydney. Allegations of sexual abuse were made against around 55 priests in the archdiocese. These were almost exclusively relating to incidents that occurred prior to his arrival as Archbishop. The allegations resulted in just under $8 million in reparation payments. In 2014, the Royal Commission into Institutional Responses to Child Sexual Abuse was told how lawyers representing Pell and the Archdiocese of Sydney helped run up bills of $1.5 million against a victim of sexual abuse. The lawyers, acting on the church's instructions, vigorously fought John Ellis through the courts despite warnings of his fragile psychological state. The resulting NSW Court of Appeal ruling established the controversial Ellis defense, which confirmed that the church could not be sued as a legal entity and held liable for abuse committed by a priest in such matters. Eventually, Ellis received $568,000 from the church. In a statement to the Royal Commission, Pell reversed his earlier stance in support of the defence, saying, "My own view is that the Church in Australia should be able to be sued in cases of this kind." Criticism of Pope Benedict XVI. Pell commented publicly that the decision of Pope Benedict XVI to retire could set a precedent which may be a problem for future leaders. He said Benedict's decision to step down had destabilized the Church and said some of those surrounding the Pope had failed to support him in his ministry. He was well aware that this is a break with tradition and slightly destabilizing, Pell said. According to him, the Pope was a better theologian than he was a leader. In response to the claim that he had criticized Pope Benedict XVI, Pell confirmed that he was stating what the Pope has already mentioned himself, and his comments were not breaking any ground. During a youth conference in Parramatta, Bishop Anthony Fisher-Up confirmed that Pell was merely stating the pros and cons of the Pope's decision, and that those who claimed that his comments were critical were taking him out of context.